Welcome to What the Decks, where, over the course of a lunch hour, we take the idea for a deck build from Lunchbox to Deckbox. I'm your host, Skylar, and today we're tackling Skaeth's Wild Hunt plus Rimelocked Relics. This is requested by a local of mine and longtime viewer of the show. And by longtime viewer, I don't think he's missed an episode. This is our sixth What the Decks episode. And that local goes by the name of Wellner, the Mad Scientist. So before we can get on with the build of the day, we're going to do a field report from the last time we did a deck build together. So for those not aware, I'm moving to a new weekly cadence. It'll be like a week A. This is week A. Every week A will be a deck build built from the ground up. And then week B will be experimental. It will be a different way to approach and talk about deck building, talk about how decks influence this game. So like last week, for example, was a deck deconstruction. So let me know what you think about the deck deconstruction that we did. That was Morn Frost, and that's the list I brought to Adepticon this year. So let me know either in the comments below on either video, this or the previous, and you can always find me on Discord as well. So today's field report, we have Prophecy of Thorns. So I was able to play about 3.5 games with Prophecy of Thorns, and you're like, half game? There was one game where one of our locals, Jake and I, we were playing together. Excuse me, hold on. Woo. We were playing together, and we were so tired that we were forgetting like who had priority in the moment. Even forgot like that wasn't round 3, that was round 2. So stuff like that. It was really funny. It was against Rothgorn, and I think the most notable thing I'll say from that is the ghosts were able to fell an 8-wound Rothgorn, and an 8-wound Rothgorn was not something I realized I'd ever have to chew through. I forgot that they had a +2 wound upgrade available to them for the big guy. But the other 3 games were played against Velmorn with Void and Curse Thralls, Headsman's Curse with Breakneck Slaughter, and Zendara with Fearsome Fortress. So we have 2 wins and 1 loss amongst these games. So the first game, Velmorn, that was a win. That was 19-16. And I think what worked really well for me here was the fact that, and actually this is true the next matchup, Headsman's as well, is that they were playing primarily aggro, right? And so when playing primarily aggro into something like Prophecy of Thorns, which is almost exclusively a hold build, either your hits need to be landing against key targets and preventing their scoring, or you kind of need to reshape your game plan a little bit to kind of deny what I'm able to score as a hold player against you. And so I was able to eke out victories in both cases, 19-16 against Velmorn, 19-17 against Headsman. And was that close. That game came down to the final 2 activations for the Headsman's player. Chop, if you're listening, shout out to you. He had 2 activations left, and the wielder of the blade was the only one left to activate it. Everybody else was either off board or charged. And so I realized that I could limit, him by moving the Briar Queen up. She couldn't actually get where I needed her to, but she could stare at him at the end of her move and say, no, you stay put, or at the very least, do not charge, right? And so then where she landed, I had my pick of landing spots, 2 different objectives that she could reach from there. And so he kind of realized like, oh man, even if I use this to move right now, I can't block you. So he was stuck in the middle with no one surrounding him for that range 1 attack, told that he couldn't super action because of the stare. And then my 4th action got her onto an objective and made all the difference. It was a really close game. And I I can't speculate too much about it beyond like how my setup was at the very end. Like I can't remember if I'd also arranged it where if he had killed somebody, I had a redundancy in place. I don't think that was the case here. That was the case against the Velmorn game. You want to try to line up scoring redundancies as much as possible. Hey, first time catching you live from Aquila. Yes, I'm sure I butchered that. Sorry about that. But good to see you. And then let's see. The third game was against Zandara. This was Fearsome Fortress, and I lost this game. I lost this game big. This is against my co-host Davey, and he was playing like a flex game plan with Zandara, and it made me realize that my matchups before this point were aggro. So I had kind of like free reign of objectives in the aggro matchups, whereas in the Zandara matchup into flex, not only was he going to be holding objectives towards his own purposes and towards countering me, but he also had a lot of damage output to be able to take me apart. So that game ended like something wild. We actually called it first activation in the third, and I think he scores something like 21 points to my 7. So that's an example of this deck just going absolutely wrong. And it made me think more about like why that was. And I realized, I had not fully adjusted my game plan to respect a flex like across the board from me. I think if they had been like full hold, it would have triggered like a complete game plan flip from me, because then it's hold versus hold, and you're vying for who can hold more in that case. But against flex, that's going to be a bit tricky, because they're going to naturally be able to stamp out some of your scoring opportunities while also trying to kill you. So really hard matchup, and I'd love to play that game again. So I'm sure I will. All right, enough with how the game shook out. Let's talk about what worked well and what didn't. So hardest objectives in the deck is Your Lucky Day. So that is hold two objectives or more that equal up to a value of 7 precisely, and 1 or more enemy fighters are out of action. So the reason this was so difficult is actually just and 1 or more enemy fighters are out of action. So I struggled to score this in all 3 games. I still think it's worthwhile, but I could see it as an eventual like tuning out. If you think that it's always going to be hard to keep a fighter down. Sometimes you're up against Resurrection and it's just not going to happen. Like up against Zandara, for example, I realized I was focusing really hard on this, which was a misplay on my part. And I realized, wait a minute, even if I'm able to get one of these little zombies down who I just kept missing attacks against, he's going to be able to bring them back on his next activation if he's like thinking that this could come up. And why wouldn't he like just spend an activation bringing one of his zombies back before that situation gets worse? And so really hard card to score for them, but I would continue to test it. Like 3 games is not conclusive enough for me to want to remove it. The payout's good, holding 7 is good and reliable. It's just that fighter out of action bit that's tough. Complete Harmony. We knew this when we were building this deck. This was going to be a tall order. I actually am still into it. I think like it's just naturally hard, right? But the payoff is immense, and if you score this in a game, you're probably winning that game. So I don't think that it necessarily needs to go, but I will offer kind of a game plan switch for those who really don't want to go for Complete Harmony and they want a less swingy objective goal here, and one that isn't pivoted on 5 locations on the board at a given time. I'll give you like an alternative build path. So I'll circle back to that, and then Score to Settle. Yes. So this card is best scored in an activation step if your warband holds each objective in enemy territory, at least one, immediately after an activation. So this, like that first bit, I wasn't ever able to score it off of that. You just have really hard attacks. So I would just never bait yourself into this bit. I definitely baited myself into trying that against Zandara. So again, another misplay. I was really trying to get your lucky day down, or like set up, and I think I had scores to settle in the same hand. So I was really just kind of leaning into the wrong things and baiting myself. I should have tried to invade their territory and try to take their objectives. What makes this particular piece of this card so doable and so worth like chasing is that it's after any activation. So you can, like, if they've got 2 in their territory, for example, and they're both currently open, you can like get on one, delve it, and then in the next activation move over to the other one. And you just have so many different like teleports and tricks to really help set up making this piece happen, that I still think that this is totally worthwhile keeping in the deck. Now, if you're up against somebody who's playing Thorns of the Briar Queen, one thing I'll call out is a good way to counterplay a Thorns of the Briar Queen during boards is, well, first off, pick objectives if you can, because you don't want to give them their choice of where those 3 objectives are going to land, because that's their game plan. But regardless of if you got 2 or 3 objectives, put one objective just over the line across no one's territory into the Thorns territory, just over the line. And the reason for that is because they have a teleport that puts them in no one's territory, Unbound Crooks. You stop Unbound Crooks instantly. If you can say, hey, there's not going to be any tokens in no one's territory. Now, they're still able to use the card, but it's no longer instantly securing them an objective that, like one of the really fun plays when I had Unbound Crooks in hand was if there was an enemy fighter on an objective in no one's territory, I'd spend my turn charging that fighter, trying to kill or remove them from that spot, and then Unbound Crooks, somebody straight in. So, and Unbound Crooks can do even more than that. It can really set them up. So like you can use, after they've teleported to the middle, you can give the chosen fighter a charge token or a move token. But you don't have to. You don't have to give them the charge token, so you can give them the move token, which means like they can then move right off of that spot. Or regardless of which token you gave them, Varklov could push them. So this can still like set up some sneaky stuff to go grab territories in enemy territory, but I digress. All right. There's just so much to talk about with this field report. Like, Thorns was such a fun experiment, and it was a really difficult one. Like, the scoring opportunity is so great in this deck, but it's so technical that I definitely think that this deck requires reps, practice, understanding what your tricks can do for you. So this one's going to be on my brain a little bit. It's kind of been a side effect of this show is it's getting me thinking about more cards, more warbands, more decks. But sometimes, like, I don't want to just leave that deck behind and go on to the next one. I want to spend more time on Breakneck Slaughter, Headsman's Curse. I think that deck that we built on the show together is really competitive. I want to spend more time with Loonfort. They blew my mind with how much they could score. And then Prophecy of Thorns is the most hold thing that we've built so far, and man, is it fascinating. So I guess to round out this field report and not spend too much time on it, let's see. Let's talk quickly about some of the best cards in there. I mean, the power deck is stacked. Remember, we had to cut an attack action repeater, like one that would allow you to repeat a failed attack action. That's what we cut, and I still think it was the right call. But all 10 power slots are so much fun. Reversal of Fate continued to delight me with what it was capable of doing. It could quickly, get me onto cover. So all of a sudden my 2 dodge is going a little further. If I'd staggered an enemy with all of the different little stagger tools in here, and then I flipped a token underneath them, all of a sudden they're not delving that back. That can do something to help you with Complete Harmony. That can help you with Hold More. So interesting. Unliving Overseer. Oh my gosh. This card was my favorite one. So You can't give this to a minion, so I was giving this to Varklov in each example, and then drive minion. So after this fighter's activation, choose a friendly chain wrist within 2 hexes of this fighter, pick one, push the chosen chain wrist 1 hex, or that chain wrist makes an attack action, then break this card. So I was doing, like, Varklov would charge into somebody where I had scooted a minion up from before, and then hopefully that minion had a charge token. That gives me Wave of Terror. That makes Varklov's attack crazy accurate. Deal 2 damage with that. Hopefully this, like, if this minion was already in position, that means this minion's inspired now because they started next to somebody. And then Varklov reacts with this. All of a sudden, that minion is making an attack. That minion has Wave of Terror because of the charge that you just did with Varklov, supporting their attack, dealing maybe 2 damage if it or one of the axe wielders. All of a sudden, you have a surprise 4 damage swing against a target if both land. It was bonkers. It was so much fun. Slinking in there, MVP in our game. That card always goes so much work. Hey Chop, thanks for tuning in. And slinking in there is crazy good. And just in general, like the fact that you don't have to use it to push onto an objective, but if you are going to use it for that purpose, you get the full 2 push out of it. But in the occasionally you just might use that to push in to help with an inspire. You might push that in to help with support. Real good. So let's see. Was listening earlier but not logged in. Well, I'm glad you can be part of chat now. It's always awesome to have people to chat with during these episodes. Okay. Awful Leer. Already talked about how gross that card can be. If timed well, it's huge. Best against elites. And lastly, what I'll call out is Helping Hand. You have the action economy to be able to spare an action or two, and all of like the push and position support to be able to spare actions to use Helping Hand to situate your needs. And that could be super huge if you're able to pull that off into complete harmony. But more importantly, it's probably going to be getting you Portents of Doom or your lucky day. So okay, I mentioned that I would give you an alternate build path that didn't go for the goal of complete harmony, and I thought a lot about this. So what I would do is I would swap out Unhallowed Aura right here. This is the one that gives you a value of 6 on an objective. I'd swap that out for Nothing Special. And Nothing Special turns any feature token you're on into an objective of a value of 0. And I'll get to why. And I'd swap Complete Harmony out for These Are Our Streets. These Are Our Streets is an objective that does, or it says something along the lines of you're holding an even and an odd in the end phase 1 point. Yeah, in fact, I'm positive of that. And there's an or in there, like if you'd killed somebody in the previous activation or action phase, you can get a point. But the reason for these swaps is, so with Unhallowed Aura, this card was my least favorite card to draw constantly. And the reason for that is if you don't have a use for it in the round you draw it, then you're going to end up having to sacrifice a card slot to hold it into the next round in your hand. Because if you play this, it's going to break instantly at the start of the next round. So that was something that was really holding this card back for me, is I never really wanted to put it out early. And so then, like, I had to make the choice of, well, do I just get rid of it right now because I want to see other cards, or do I hold on to it and reduce, my hand count? And often I just threw it away and was like, you know what? If we go for Complete Harmony, we're just going to go for Hold All, and we're going to try to delve things that we're not going to be able to hold, or flip things with Reversal of Fate. We're not going to worry about Unhallowed Aura getting us to that 15-point version of scoring Complete Harmony. And so it would leave my hand, and that's a bummer. So I think if you keep Complete Harmony, it's still worthwhile keeping this in here. It's not the worst thing in the world, but if you switch this out for Nothing Special, all of a sudden, if you're ever in a situation where something has been plundered into play, you can create another objective that you're holding. That helps with the amount of objectives you're holding. That helps with maybe where you're holding them. That helps with holding an even, because a 0 is going to count as an even. So that helps with, these are our streets, if you bring that in instead of complete harmony. So nothing special, is just a fascinating way to bring more objectives that you can hold into this scenario and make it easier to hold more or hold the count that you need. So it also makes it so that if you're holding, like, let's say you're holding more than the value of 9 and you need to flip one of the tokens over so that you're now holding a value of 9, but like all of a sudden you're not going to score it for 3, right? Well, go ahead and when you flip that one over, it's a value of 0. It counts towards your precise value. You're now getting the extra point out of this. And you were able to situate your numbers without sacrificing how many objectives you're holding. So I think nothing special is a really good swap in here. But we've spent 20 minutes on this field report already. So let's dive into building our Rimelocked Skaeth's Wild Hunt. Whew. Yeah, I could sit here and talk about this deck for even longer. Hold on, my throat's a little sore. Let me just grab some water. All right. So, we got to clear the deck editor and situate Skaeth's Wild Hunt. So this was my first warband. I played this warband for a year and maybe some change, pretty much exclusively when I got into the game. Hey, Hillmath90, glad you're joining us. All right. So when I got into the game, I played this warband a lot, but I actually have not really read or done much with Rimelocked Relics at all yet. Just the deluge of content and everything that's been going on lately. So part of this build will be very familiar. Part of this build will be very unfamiliar, and that's a really fun place to be. I really enjoy exploring these builds in these episodes when there's an element of unfamiliarity available. Removes like any biases I might have already formed, and it makes it all feel very exploratory. All right, so right out of the gate, let's talk about a couple of their best objectives. We'll take a look at Wintry Conquest here, but Hunt's End is the first thing I want to talk about. So whenever you're building Skaeth's Wild Hunt, and I think this pairing is going to be pretty fun because from what I've heard, and maybe I'll be proven wrong here, from what I've heard about Rimelocked Relics, it feels like a very flex, like a flex deck. So anytime you hear somebody talk about flex, usually they mean aggro plus hold. Flex can sometimes be aggro and. So it's just saying like, hey, like, I'm going to be like, I have good attack output built into this deck, or reasons to be attacking, plus something else is usually what flex means. If somebody just says it's a flex build, they generally mean flex hold, so aggro plus hold. And Skaeth's Wild Hunt has always been a flex warband, so I think Rimelocked Relics is going to be a fun pairing here. So Hunt's End. This card is their best objective. Score this in an end phase if an enemy fighter with a wounds characteristic of 4 or greater is out of action, or your warband holds 3 or more objectives. So just the hybrid nature of this makes this so good. So holding 3 is something that you're probably going to be able to achieve early on, but holding or like taking a fighter out 4 or greater, there's usually one across the field, and if there isn't, then most of the time that's the best matchups to be like also trying to like compete to hold. So it's got a really fun like matchup flexibility where one of these sides is always something that you're going to be able to accomplish in a matchup. All right, so then Chop weighing in here. Rimelocked Relics does feel like flex, but I think it can lean more into aggro or hold as you need. Perfect. That sounds like a beautiful flex toolkit. Really pumped to be exploring it here. So Purifying Rites is another objective I'd always take with Skaeth's Wild Hunt. Score this in an end phase if your warband holds all objectives in one or more players' territory. So players' territory is going to eliminate no one's territory here. And very often it's going to be your territory you're scoring this in, but this could be scored off of a single objective, and specifically a single face-up objective, right? Anytime they're flipped down, then they don't count towards something like Purifying Rites. They don't count towards how many objectives are in your territory. And when you're playing Skaeth's Wild Hunt, you have about 4.5 fighters, because Legane here isn't doing much for you, which makes me sad. I love him so much. People pronounce him all sorts of different things. Legane, Lehan. Lehan is actually usually how I pronounce him, and I'll be like, Lehan, no, or Lion, because if this very well could have been written in such a way where they're trying to force a pronunciation of lion out of it, which is just funny. So he can't hold for you, but what he can do, especially with his movement speed, is pretty much wherever you start him in the back corner of your board, because that's where you're starting him. He can probably make it to any of the objectives in your territory that you're not holding and flip it over for you, so that it will contribute towards Purifying Rites, which is not something that they had available to them when they came out. So when delving became a thing, part of my brain is always a foot into Skaeth's Wild Hunt. So I was like, oh, wait a minute, Purifying Rites just got easier. But we'll be bringing that for sure. So those are their two best objectives, and I just wanted to start with those. They are very flexy, both of them. So let's take a look at this Wintry Conquest. This is straight new for me. Score this in an end phase if your warband holds 3 or more objectives, and 1 or more friendly fighters holding an objective each have 1 or more Rimelocked upgrades for 3 glory. So this is Supremacy with a caveat. Unfortunately, we're not really well suited for it. Like, the reason Hunt's End works so well is because early game we can probably get on that 3, but if we don't, then we're able to score this hopefully later for that for taking down a 4 health fighter or greater. Purifying Rites could be scored off of 3 objectives, but we're probably scoring it off of 1 or 2. So Wintry Conquest is actually a huge ask for us because we're pretty fragile. So consider this warband to be very glass cannon-y, and you want to get Skaeth inspired before he starts taking damage, because it gets him up to 2 shields, which is fantastic. Carthane is the one that can usually escape danger early, just because he's rolling 2 dice to his benefit. But like these two, they don't have much going for them in the health and defense department. Anybody comes in with 3 damage, you got 1 dice to try to block it, or even 2 damage in a ping card, and they're gone. So they're very glass. When they inspire, they both get a reroll on defense. So it is beneficial to get them inspired, but more so for the fact that Shiak will get cleave and an extra dice, so he just becomes so much more dangerous. And she gets ensnare, so her bow shots, like, you kind of have a toolkit here, right, where it's like, okay, am I against a dodge heavy warband, then she's going to be more value. Am I against some special targets that I really need to take down that are holding blocks to keep them up, Shiak's going to be more your solution there. Carthane, other side of the toolkit, universal side of the toolkit, goes up to 3 damage. Also becomes a wizard of level 2. So he's going to often be the one that's like your heavy hitter. I almost never use him for the spell stuff, but there are some good spells in here, and we'll explore those. Spells used to not be something that I felt was worth the slot, because if the wizard died, then, dead slot. And the fact that he started on 1 made them so hard to cast, whereas now they're much, much more attractive. Before we move away from the fighters here, let's also just talk about how they inspire. They inspire after or at the end of a phase. So this is an action phase. So once that's wrapped up, we're going into end phase. They'll inspire if they have a charge token. It doesn't say that they charged, just that they have a charged token. So something I loved doing with them was when Championship was the main format, Bag of Tricks was available to us. And so I'd constantly like identify who my early like Bag of Tricks candidate was going to be. Hey, you're going to go sit on an objective with a move, and then we're going to get you Bag of Tricks and or a push, and we're going to give you Bag of Tricks. Use that to go search my deck for I think it was an upgrade of my choosing, but a card of my choosing, and then award you a charge token. So essentially, for an action, I'd be like, let's go fetch a card that I need, and then you're inspired as well. So anything in the Rimelocked deck that gives us a charge token, we'll be giving a second look because it will help us inspire. And then if you're curious about Lihan, he does inspire to ensnare, but he's still only at 1 damage. Best thing he gets is that second defense dice, so that hopefully he can survive some attacks when they're trying to take down an easy target. But he's about half a fighter. That's the best way I can put it. So we're going to pass on Wintry Conquest here. On to Slay the Corrupted. Score this in an end phase if 3 or more enemy fighters are out of action. Very matchup dependent. I leave this at home anytime I see cards like this, whether it's in their build or others, because you're up against a Horde, easy. You're up against Domiton, Storm Coven, Gore Chosen, you name it, 3 fighters, terribly difficult for 2 glory. And with how glass you are, they're probably going to be able to take you down before you take them down. Up against Sepulchral Guard, that's a swarm, right? Well, they all resurrect. So, yeah. Not something you can count on. Cold Front. Your warband holds more objectives than each other warband, and more enemy fighters than friendly fighters have wound counters. Ooh. All right, we're going to explore that one. So hold more. Yeah, we can probably manage that. Especially we've got, so Skaeth has, we didn't cover Skaeth fully here. So he has a range 3 Javelin. He gets this once per game, unless you bring a card that can retrieve it, which we might. And so when it's thrown, it does +1 damage. So a range 3, 2 damage attack, and it gets more accurate too on this side. So if you can hold it, until he inspires, you can do more with it. I often don't hold it until he inspires. Usually I charge him round 1 somewhere like onto an objective very often, and then use this to make it a charge. So it's less about this attack landing. That's a bonus. That would be awesome. And more about making sure that he's charged for round 2, and then gaining access to scything as well. But between him and our archer, Althane, we're going to have plenty of opportunities to put like wounds down on targets while potentially pushing them off of objective positions. So I think Cold Front might be in. Icebound Defenders. Your warband holds 2 or more objectives, and your warband holds each objective in 1 or more territories. Oh, snap. Okay, so this could pair with Purifying Rites. We could just hold 2 in our territory, and if any more of them show up in our territory, we just flip them over with Lagain. I don't hate that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Oh, wow. All right. Sweet. So then Steaming Corpses. 1 or more friendly fighters and 1 or more enemy fighters are each out of action, and 1 or more of those fighters each have 1 or more face-down Rimelocked upgrades. Ooh. All right, so I already mentioned we're glass. So if we can, and we're pictured on this card. What am I doing? In. That's us. Yeah, I think that this is pretty fun. I'm assuming there's a way to hand off Rimelocked upgrades. I don't remember to what quantity, but we could always call our shot and kill somebody that we've just put a Rimelocked relic onto, or kind of like dangle somebody out there who's a bit fragile with a Rimelocked primed. And I mean, not that I want to be losing fighters, but if I am, score 2 points from me, please. That feels cool, man. If you're playing Resurrection, oh, chop. He's been playing a lot of death. And man, if you can, have a fighter out of action on your side with a Rimelocked upgrade and then bring them back later, super cool. Like, while you're away, score me 2 points, then come back in, do your thing. The only thing there is you'd have to restart your counters on the Rimelocked relic, but that's okay. Oh, hey, yeah, anybody out here who's like, hey, tell me a little bit more about Rimelocked. It does have a block card over it. I know, he says. When you give a Rimelocked upgrade to a friendly fighter, that card is not revealed, so it's going face down. Boop. I really buried the lead on this. Sorry. While that card is face down, it is Rimelocked and has the Thaw ability. So in the short, they're on a delay. In the reaction step following an activation step, place a Thaw counter on this card. When this card has 3 or more Thaw counters, remove each Thaw counter on this card and turn this card face up. So essentially, whatever power step you play this in, you need 3 activations to happen before this goes boop, face up. So if you play this after yours, that's enemy, yours, enemy, and then it's up going into yours, which I think is probably always going to be kind of the cadence that you want there. But your opponents, if they kind of start feeling out, like if you're playing like a best of 3 or whatever, and they're kind of feeling out what Rimelocked upgrades you brought and kind of like what potential they could be, it can put some pressure on them to try to take this fighter out before that thaws, especially if they have a good guess as to what it is. All right, so in on Steaming Corpses, Stolen Warmth. Score this in an end phase if 2 or more enemy fighters are out of action and 2 or more friendly fighters each have 1 or more face-up Rimelocked upgrades. I don't hate it. This can be fairly hard for the same reasons Slay the Corrupted can be hard. I think I'd probably want to take a reliable 1-pointer over this. In this build, there are other builds where I would totally bring this card. Against, like if I was rocking Headsman's Curse, I feel like this is a card I would bring. We've already got 5 objectives. I don't think we're hurting for it. I think by the time we get 2 or more enemy fighters out, depending on our matchup, that are going to stay dead, then we might not also have 2 fighters alive with Rimelocked Relics. So let's pass on that for now. Total Conquest. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation step if... Oh, so we're into surges here. A 2-point surge. Excellent. 1 or more enemy fighters are out of action, and your warband holds 2 or more objectives in no one's and or enemy territory. Okay. Call me tempted. This might be really hard with this warband. This is probably a mistake, but we have really good accuracy and damage output, or decent damage output. The accuracy is what we excel at. And so I think we can get a fighter out. The opponent's activation is hard because if you're up against a res warband, they're going to have that activation to bring back and try to counter that first part of this duel. But 2 or more objectives in no one's and or enemy territory. This might be working against what I'm trying to do with Purifying Rites and was that Cold Front? And Icebound Defenders, specifically Icebound Defenders. So this might be a first cut. I think we might lean into reliable 1-point surges, or if there's any in here that flex up, then going for this. This might be a trap. But I don't actually want to fully be into surges yet. Let's keep talking end phases. So aspects of Kurnoth. Score this in an end phase if all surviving friendly fighters are inspired. I generally don't take this card because you generally can't score it round 1, and if it's only going to give you 1 point, it hurts a lot to have a card that can't score in the first round. So I think we're going to pass on that one. Score this in an end phase if a friendly Carthane made the Hunting Horn action in the previous phase and there is a surviving friendly Carthane. So this card is an interesting one. It's generally really reliable. Like when I bring it, I usually score it. I do a lot of practice games, or let me say that differently. I do a lot of teaching games where I'll play Skaeth's Wild Hunt, either with Nemesis or even just pure rivals. Like a lot of the time, this is pure rivals, and this is like something that I need in those matchups for that reliable 1 point. But the action economy is really rough on his Horn because he has to spend a whole action. Like, it would be super cool if it was a reaction. It would probably be too strong. Put a Horn counter on this card. When there are one or more Horn counters on this card, reroll any number of dice in the next attack roll made for a friendly fighter's attack action. Then remove the Horn counter. So you have to spend a whole action priming a reroll, and then you make an attack, and you have some pretty accurate attacks, and your attack is awesome. Like, you just rolled successes. Oh, cool. Awesome. Well, the Horn counter goes away. So you just spent an action that didn't result in anything. Now, you'd feel differently if that attack totally whiffed, and then you spent the Horn counter to reroll. I mean, it's going away regardless, and you full reroll, and that helps land that attack. That feels great. But it's a lot of betting on like a high probability attack to not land in the first place, at the cost of a whole action. So generally, the only time I use the Horn, and this is kind of what I was getting at, is when I have Cry of the Wild in my hand. That's it. So if we can avoid needing to use an entire action to score this 1 point card, and then hoping Carthane survives from there, yeah, let's avoid it. Gifts of the Carnoth. Score this in an end phase if 3 or more surviving friendly fighters each have 1 or more upgrades. This is generally pretty good, especially like round 1. If you can get a kill, a couple surges, like this is doable. Safety and Swiftness. Score this in an end phase if 3 or more surviving friendly fighters each have 1 or more move and or charge tokens. This is even easier. So in both cases, we need 3 fighters alive. That's often the rub when it comes to playing the Wild Hunt, is you dwindle down to 3 and then below 3 pretty quickly, especially by the end of round 2. So you want to see either of these earlier. You want to see probably Safety and Swiftness over Gifts, because Safety and Swiftness doesn't require that you get any Seed Glory to go into it. And a Line in the Snow. Duel. Score this in an end phase if 1 or more enemy fighters are out of action and 2 or more friendly fighters are in no one's and or enemy territory. Nope. Not for 1 point. That's going to pull us away from all the other scoring that we've been setting up. So we ended up with 8 objectives. One of them is that surge that I'm probably already going to cut. So 7 end phase. So we'll be keeping one of those reliable end phases for sure, probably. And then we'll just kind of assess when we get to the trim if we need another one of those 1s over these 2s. But I imagine what's going to happen is we're going to cut Gifts of the Carnoth and keep the rest. On to surges. So we've already put Total Conquest up there. I'm sus of it. I don't think we're taking it. But in the meantime, let's talk about what we could take. Carnoth's Snare. Score this immediately when an enemy fighter is pushed into a lethal hex. Note, pushed, not killed by. In Beastgrave, you took this. And they came out in Beastgrave. Because in Beastgrave, you got to, at the beginning of the game, you know how there's 2 available feature tokens these days that sit outside the board and wait for cards to bring them in? At the beginning of each game, you brought those in. So after objectives were placed down by both players, each player got to place one of the available tokens in, and it was a lethal hex at that time. So you literally got to like call out like, I'm going to put a lethal behind either like this objective or this starting hex. And guess what? Carnoth's Snare is like very likely in those matchups. So now you have to rely on ones that are on the board more often than not. So this card got a lot harder. And if we're thinking about bringing this, it will force us to bring lethals on our side and kind of invite invasion. I think we might be pretty hard pressed for surges. So we're going to add it and think about it because we just need to push somebody in. And there's knockback in this deck too. So knockback can help you score that. We'll think about it. Ritual Kill. Score this immediately when your warband takes an enemy fighter standing in the same hex as an objective out of action. In my experience, this card is extremely difficult because there are matchups where this is just going to happen, and that's awesome. But there are plenty of matchups where this isn't ever going to happen, and you just have people that don't care to be on objectives or are threatening you being on an objective, and you need to get them away from threatening that, but they're not there themselves. So this card is a pass from me. A rundown, score this immediately when a friendly fighter takes an enemy fighter out of action with an attack action made as part of a charge action. We're going to be charging anyways. Most of the time we kill people, it's going to be from a charge. So why don't we grab an extra glory from it? This is rundown and run through are kind of bread and butter for them. Rundown more so, because run through requires that your leader did the kill. It doesn't need to be from a charge, but it's an extra point if your leader gets a kill. Your leader is this warband. If your leader dies, you have a lot less flexibility and functionality available to you. Look at this guy. Move 5, 2 shields, 4 health. He's got a javelin he can throw, and we're probably going to be able to throw it twice because we're going to bring the retrieval card, I think. He's got scything. And then wait until you see their upgrades. You start loading this guy up, he becomes a tank. So he should be the one doing the killing a lot of the time. So run through. It always sucks when you have it in your hand, though, and he's dead, which will happen. But I don't think our surges are... We'll see. We'll see what we have here in Rimelocked Relics. But often I've always had to just bring this and deal with it. Soul Binding. Score this immediately when your warband casts a spell. We're going to add this and then take a look at what types of spells we could bring. We don't have any on fighter cards, so instantly we're relying on drawing them in the power deck, which can affect whether this is a good or a bad idea. All right, into the ones I don't know very well. So I've looked at all of these once, but in a sleepy haze, because for the What the Heck's content release, since there was so much coming all at once, we kind of divided and conquered, and this one didn't fall on my plate. Rimelocked Relics. So Defrosted. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's Rimelocked upgrade is turned face up and that fighter is holding an objective. Okay. So I have to time this well, but I'm not opposed to that. I plan to be on objectives, and I plan to bring some Rimelocked upgrades. It's a little slow because I need Seed Glory. Oh, man, I hope that this deck has a, here's a free upgrade card. If there was ever going to be one a deck out there that helped you get an upgrade out faster, I would hope it would be ones that, need time to get online. So we'll take a look at Defrosted here. I don't hate it. Duel. Score this immediately after. This is Frostbitten Strike. An enemy fighter is taken out of action, and your warband holds one or more objectives. Oh, baby. It's another kill surge, but we're playing Wild Hunt. So I like that one quite a bit. Very often that should be the case. It might even be from... Yeah, it might even be from the same person that's holding, because we've got that javelin throw and we've got the archer available to us. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation step if one or more friendly fighters holding an objective has one or more Rimelocked upgrades. An enemy is... Okay. Wait. After an opponent's activation step, if one or more friendlies are holding an objective and has one or more Rimelocked upgrades. Ooh, and it doesn't have to be flipped over yet? Awesome. Better. All right, this one's getting in for sure. Icy Grip. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation step if your warband holds 2 or more objectives and one or more of those objectives are in no one's and or enemy territory. Immediately after an opponent's activation step, so they can remove us from those spots during their turn, and we really only have 2 people that can reliably hold down a position. That would be our leader and Carthane. So, man, as much as I want to take this, I think I have to leave this one. I think the timing's just timing's hard. and the pull away from our territory is hard, just with how we've been building. And Shattered Defenses. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action if that action was successful and the attacker is holding an objective in no one's or enemy territory. Attacker's holding an objective in no one's. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's better than getting a kill. Yeah. We'll entertain that. Okay, we'll entertain that. Oh, cool. We got a great surge pool. There's a lot of kill surges in here, so this will be an exercise in just tuning out some kill surges and probably Total Conquest. I'm still not hot on that one. All right, so on to... let's go to spells. Let's go straight to spells. So we only have the spells from the Wild Hunt here, but you'll notice they're a bit spicy. So we'll start with Binding Wind. If cast, choose an enemy fighter within 4 hexes of the caster. Give that fighter a move token. Ever since the change in charge economy, right, now that you can be charged out, Binding Wind was already kind of rude, and is far more rude now that you can prevent a warband from being charged out. So that one's coming in. I might change my mind on Icy Grip once you see the Gambits and upgrades. Good to know. Okay. Icy Grip I think that one was an end phase. I'll keep it in mind. We might circle back to that one. Healing Breeze. If cast, pick a hex within 4 hexes of the caster. Heal 1 any fighters in that hex and in hexes adjacent to that hex. This card usually doesn't do all too much alone. But there is any source of damage that incomes to your fighter upgrade, reduced by 1 to a minimum of 1. So when you combine Healing Breeze with somebody that has that upgrade, you're giving them some really good survivability. Generally, I wouldn't take Healing Breeze. I am going to add it in here because that opens us up to bring Soul Binding. We have 3 spells. If we bring all 3 of them, then we have a good reason to keep and bring Soul Binding. Any less than 3 spells, and I wouldn't be about it. So we'll consider this. And Might of the Kurnoth is really good. If cast, choose a friendly fighter. Their range 1 and range 2 attack actions have +1 damage. This spell persists until the end of the round or until that fighter is taken out of action. And this doesn't have scything restrictions. This card is really good. So you can crank Skaeth up to 3 damage on scything. Or you can take Carthane up to 4. You can take a Cleave with 3 up to 3 damage. So Might of Kurnoth, you're gonna want to see this card. You're gonna want this card to cast, and then reap the benefits. So for sure, we want to bring Binding Wind and Might of Kurnoth, which is why it's maybe we do bring Healing Breeze and go for Soul Binding. The only thing there though is then you kind of start waiting on Soul Binding. If you have these cards in your hand and you're like, oh, I really want to spend them, but I need to get through this other surge to see if I'll draw into Soul Binding beforehand. So that could pull us away from Soul Binding and then maybe away from Healing Breeze. All right, on to the ploys. So, you know what? We'll start up here. We'll keep going with theirs. Choose a friendly fighter. This is Fleet of Foot. That has no move or charge tokens. They make a move action. So this is just generally really good early. So it gets worse late because it kind of forces a move action upon you. But in the early game, it can help you get into your positions without having to spend an action or a charge. Very often this will be Legane, how I move him, the lion, onto an objective and then flip it. Hunting Concert, it's their best ploy in here. Choose up to 2 friendly fighters and push each of them up to 1 hex. That's incredibly good for a flex warband. It allows us to instantly get onto objectives right out of the rip at the start of the game. The The downfall here is now all of a sudden you've given these fighters positions that they didn't have to charge into, so you're kind of sacrificing their inspire if you're going to continue to hold them there. But it could help us with some of the positional scoring in the surges. So and you don't have to push onto objectives. So sometimes, like, it's just, I mean, who doesn't want to be able to push up to 2 fighters? Like, that's awesome. Pounce, push a friendly fighter up to 3 hexes so that they are adjacent to an enemy fighter that has 1 or more wound tokens. So the idea here is you're getting a support in a lot of cases, or you're getting like a free activation, if you will, because you're not having to move or charge into it on somebody that's already wounded. I really like Pounce. Retrieve Javelin. This is just, hey, your leader is no longer considered to have made a Javelin of the Hunt attack action. You've retrieved your Javelin. It's restricted to Skaeth, so if he goes down, we can salvage it. Increases the value for me. Song of Swiftness. Friendly fighters have +1 move. This effect persists until the end of the round or until the friendly Carthane is taken out of action. This is a card you do not need. You are on 4 move at the beginning of the game on your bipedals, 5 already on your quadrupeds, and your bipedals all get up to 5. You do not need +1 move. What are you doing with +1 move? Unless you're just really, really needing to get to that back fighter. Which does happen, but you've got good reach already. Striking Concert. The first range 1 or range 2 attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has +1 damage for each friendly supporting fighter. This is so cool when it goes off. It's really hard to situate because you don't naturally swarm. You don't naturally like have ways to grant like additional supporting fighters or supported positions. But if you do take the time to make this happen, and it's named in concert with Hunt in Concert, wink wink, it's great, right? So it helps actually elevate Fleet of Foot. It helps elevate Pounce in the deck if you also have striking Concert in here. But we'll take that. At least consider it. Swift, because it's unlimited. So very often you don't need to have more than 1 or 2 supports to like really make your attack go through. But if you have a 3rd support here, it will add a 3rd damage. Again, unlikely, but available. Swift as the Wind. Choose a friendly fighter that has 1 or more move tokens. Remove 1 of those tokens. This is like the 11th card for me when I play them. I often don't bring this card because I don't have room for it. I mean, if you look, we've already taken 8 of their Gambits. I'm sure I'm going to be forced to cut some of these because I'm sure there's going to be things in here that I want. So I want to be charging. That's how I get inspired. And I mean, we're trying to push as many attacks as we can. So often we're not going to have move tokens. So Swift as the Wind is a hard ask. Like, it's pretty much helping get rid of the one that you had to give for Fleet of Foot. And that's about it. So we're going to get rid of or leave Swift as the Wind. And we're into the Rimelocked stuff. So I'm super excited to read more of this. There better be a free upgrade card in here. Rolls of crits are considered to be successes, not critical successes in attack and defense rolls in the next activation step. That's extremely interesting. And I don't like it. Because I'm already doing a lot on the attack front. I guess it helps make my hammer attacks go further. But what it doesn't do, and this is why my knee jerk was I don't like it, is it doesn't help my defense. I'd love to be able to say, hey, you can't roll crits, person coming in with 4 or 5 dice, but my one defense dice, if I luck into that crit, like it'll work, even though you rolled 4 or 5 successes. Oh man, this is kind of neat in the sense that it can make my hammers like push through a little bit, but I think overall we're gonna hold, and it's only 1 activation step. Man, if this was a domain, I think we'd be considering it. But for now, Yeah. Anyways, brittle reveal. Choose a friendly fighter that has one or more face-down Rimelocked upgrades and pick one of those cards. Remove each thaw counter on that card and turn that card face up. At the end of the action phase, break that card. Choose a friendly fighter that has one or more. Oh, okay. So it's saying that you get your upgrade flipped up early, but now you're only getting it for one round action phase. Okay, so you're getting it for the rest of that action phase. I'll add it. I'm intrigued, but I need to see more of what we got in the Rimelocked department. Cool heads. Friendly fighters holding objectives cannot be pushed. This effect persists until the end of the next power step. Ooh. I guess with our game plan, I think I might dig this. It's only for until the end of the next power step. Cannot be pushed. Oh, wow. Okay. So enemy cards can't push us for 2 power steps, like from the moment we play this until the end of the next one. And drive back can't push us off if they tie us. This might be... Oh, man. This is already going to be a really hard Gambit trim. +1 damage to the first attack action made in the next activation step if the attacker has one or more face-up Rimelocked upgrades. Okay, so we have to put some Seed Glory into that. Is Striking Concert doing anything made by in the next... It's not doing anything unless we have a support, but traditionally I've always been able to get the 1 damage out of this, like when I have it in hand, because you just think about it, right? And so you always land into orchestrating it. You know, when you're playing Flex, a lot of the times warbands are coming to you and trying to push you off of your position, and sometimes that sticks them next to you and creates a support. And I don't have to spend any glory, and I don't have to wait for it to come up. I think I still like the one that we have already over something like Creeping Frost. Okay, Fractured Steps. Choose a friendly fighter that has one or more face-down Rimelocked upgrades and pick one of those cards. Push that fighter 1 hex for each thaw counter on that card. Oh, cool. Has one or more face-down Rimelocked and pick one of those cards. Push that fighter. So, is this 2? When is the timing on this? Place a thaw counter on this card. When this has 3 or more thaw counters, remove each. Doesn't say may remove. So you can never like pump up to more than 3 through the reaction steps that follow an activation. When this card has 3 or more thaw counters, remove each thaw counter on this card and turn this card face up. Actually, this part is even separated from the activation step. So yeah, the most you can ever get from this is 2, but it is a push 2. We'll think about it, or 1 or 2. Frozen Solid. Choose a fighter that has one or more upgrades that are not Rimelocked and pick one of those cards. Roll 1 magic dice. On a roll of channel or crit, that upgrade is Rimelocked. Oh, hold on. Is this blown up? Oh, I'm so sorry, viewers. I've spent this whole episode with this zoomed out, so it's harder for you to see and read along. Shame on me. This is actually further than I normally zoom in because it's a lot on my side. Okay. Feel free to call me out on that in the future. I hope it hasn't been too hard on your side. So let's see. We were in the middle of Frozen Solid. No wonder I was like, why am I straining my eyes so much today? Because you're at 20, not 125 that you normally are. All right, Frozen Solid. Choose a fighter that has one or more upgrades that are not Rimelocked and pick one of those cards. Sorry that we had already started reading this one. Roll magic dice, channel crit. That upgrade is Rimelocked. Turn that card face down. That card follows the rules for Rimelocked upgrades on the Rimelocked Relics plot card until the end of the game. I think that's really fun. Being able to shut somebody's card down is really cool. Like, especially if they have a key upgrade. Man, we're going to have a really hard trim in Gambits. These better stop being super cool. I'm kidding. I want them to continue being cool. Choose up to 2 friendly fighters and push each chosen fighter 1 hex. After each push, that fighter must be holding an objective. Then give each chosen fighter 1 move token or 1 charge token. Yes! All right. This is in. Period. Choose up to 2. Yeah, this is in. Okay. Especially since it says up to, because I can pick 1. Mm-hmm. This makes this Wild Hunt player very happy to be able to cheat out and inspire and hold a position like this. I can place an objective pretty safe in the back at the beginning of the game, and if I draw into Glacial Advance early, then I'm just like, all right, somebody spawn there who I want out of harm's way, but I need for later. So like, for example, Shiok, like maybe I want to make sure he gets that cleave, put him on that, get him charged. And then all of a sudden, I never had to risk his position to get him there early on. Rays of Dawn. Choose a friendly fighter that has 1 or more face-down Rimelocked upgrades and pick one of those cards. Place 1 Thaw counter on that card. Oh, we're going to have no room. So cheat out and upgrade a little faster. I have a feeling I'm going to end up cutting this card. I don't want to, because as soon as we start looking at the Rimelocked stuff, I'm sure I'm going to be able to want to cheat out an activation. But I think I'll just have to be like, because this also helps with glory timing. I think this mostly helps with glory timing. Like, it's easy to say, oh, just play it, 3 activations in advance, done, right? But like, did you have the glory at that time? Rays of Dawn is like, hey, I'll spare you an activation's worth of waiting because I know you didn't have the glory yet. All right, Sudden Thaw. Domain. Each time a Thaw counter would be placed on a face-down Rimelock upgrade, place 1 additional Thaw counter on that card. This effect persists until the end of the round or until another Domain Gambit is played. We might actually consider this. Not only is that good for advancing Rimelocked upgrades, but that is also good for canceling Rime Worm Bite, which I think will be quite popular and has domains. So if you can play a domain to cancel their domain, cool. The problem is, in that matchup, this is probably all that'll do, because they probably have another domain to play on their side, and then they can immediately break yours. So there's push or pull on the value on that one. Winterborn Might. Choose a friendly fighter with 1 or more face-down Rimelock upgrades that has 1 or more Thaw counters and pick one of those cards. Remove 1 or more Thaw counters from that card. +1 dice to the first attack action made in the next activation step by that fighter for each Thaw counter removed in that way. What? Oh no. I have said yes to so many of these. Okay, we should have started with the upgrades. That's what we should have started. That would have made more sense. I don't know how to value some of this stuff yet. All right, here we go. On to the upgrades. Let's start with the hunt because I know them. Battle Cry. Action. Remove all guard tokens from adjacent enemy fighters. Push all adjacent enemy fighters up to 1 hex. Yeah, for an action, this is really rough. You don't have, you're often not going to be next to your own fighters. This does, however, like if we were playing like Hold More or something like that, this would be great because it's like, hey, I'm going to remove and then push you away, person who's been holding on this objective. But the problem is you also then had to figure out a way to get them into that position before you spent this as an action. I've like never taken this card. I've always thought about it, but that action cost is really expensive. All right, Divine Strength. This fighter's attack actions have knockback 1. What makes this particularly good is there is no range restrictions on this. So your archer can fire shots off and then push people around. If we have to bring lethals on our board that we want to push people into, we pretty much have to bring this to help set that up when people are being mindful of their footing, and people often are around lethal hexes. So Divine Strength is something we can consider. It can also help pull somebody off of an objective and make it really hard for them to get back on it in our own territory. Eye of Kurnoth. This fighter's attack actions have +1 dice. If the target is a quarry, which almost never happens, this fighter's attack actions also have Ensnare. So you're bringing this for the +1 dice, and this is also range, not restricted. So +1 dice, regardless of range, when you're making attacks. Yes. Fast Shot. After this fighter's reaction, in which they made a range 3+ attack action, they make another range 3+ attack action. So a lot of archers in the game have an upgrade like this. This one's specific to Althane. I think this is a really good card. It's hard to make good use out of somebody who's only dealing 1 damage at any given time, but when you can do that twice, or at least make 2 attempts at it, it goes a lot further. And you only have 5 fighters, so you want to crank up their viability, and then if she goes down, it's salvageable. Great Strides, +2 move. Hilarious, probably not something that you actually need, though. We don't really need fighters on 7 move all too often. Hail Charm. When this fighter is dealt damage, reduce that damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. Yes, yes, yes. This is super good. It's dealt damage from any source, by the way. Gorehawk comes up, goes to overhead smash you. Go ahead. Go ahead, smash me. I'm just going to toss Hail Charm on real quick. You're not doing 2 or 3 damage with that. You're dealing 1. Oh, wait. That damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. Okay. So you're doing 2 damage or 1 damage. But Hail Charm's great. It makes your health bar go a lot further. Hunting Aspect. This makes... I've been calling him Legane, so I'll keep doing that. Just simply... it's so weird that I slipped into that for this, because I normally call him Leon. But we'll continue with Legane to not throw people off. So if you want Legane to do a little more for you, 7 move, 3 defense when inspired, 3 wounds when inspired. It does help his survivability immensely. And so this is almost like 1 glory denial, because often he's some pretty easy pickup glory for your opponent. Some of my builds this makes it in, some of them it doesn't. We're going to explore it here, but Rimelocked Relics will probably push it out. Kurnoth's Mark. So I'm going to start with the reaction on this one. After a friendly fighter's attack action that takes an adjacent enemy fighter out of action, if this card is in your hand, give that friendly fighter this upgrade, not spend any glory points on it. Restricted to hunters, which is everyone? It's not Legane. That restriction is just, hey, you can't put this on Legane. You can reroll 1 dice in the defense roll when this fighter is the target of an attack action. This card's really great, except for the fact that it is redundant on 2 of your fighters, on Shiok and Althane. They're already rerolling their 1 defense dice when they're inspired, so never give this to them. Always give this to your leader or Carthane, which does mean this is a dead card and not really salvageable if either of those 2 go down. Shield Slash. This is a scary weapon. You're dealing 3 damage from Skaeth, range 1, 2 smash. Sometimes this would eke into old decks just because you want Skaeth to survive, and this gives him an extra deadly option available to him. But I find it's getting into more of my decks now that salvage is a thing. Vicious Darts. This would give us a spell attack to help with soul binding, and it's restricted to a wizard, so this is restricted to Carthane. It has Ensnare. On a critical hit, this attack action has +1 damage, so essentially Ensnare and Grievous. On 2, fundamentally when he's inspired anyways, we're looking at 2 focus. If we bring soul binding, we might consider this. So again, we said yes to a lot. This will be easier for me to whittle, because this coming up here is just so unfamiliar to me. Here we go. Chillblain Armor. This fighter's defense characteristic is 2 and cannot be modified further. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is making it in. This is going on Shiok or Althane. And all of a sudden, that reroll statement I just made, you can give this to them, and they can reroll both of their defense dice. Yes, please. This card 100% is making it in and has reinforced Kurnos Mark as something that's making it in as well. Frostbite. Reaction. After an activation... Was this? And it's not even Rimelocked? Oh, I'm excited. Okay. Frostbite. Reaction. After an activation step in which this fighter's range 1 attack action dealt damage to the target, pick one of the target's upgrades that is not Rimelocked, even if that fighter is out of action. Turn that card face down. That card is Rimelocked. That card follows the rules for Rimelocked upgrades on the Rimelocked Relics plot card until the end of the game. Way cool. That means... Wait. Do they... Huh. I don't think upgrades can get counters while the fighter is out of action. I know all the counters go away when they die. I would actually need to do some rule diving to know if they can gain counters while dead. I assume they can't. Because I assume the ability on this... Yeah, the ability on this would... okay, that's what's going on here. The ability on this would shut off while they're out of action. Because the only abilities that can work while something is out of action is ones that explicitly say. Okay. Quandary solved. So this can help us with getting Rimelocked upgrades on their side. And we have some scoring potential there. Frostgale. Range 4, 3 smash, 1 damage and snare. That's really hot. Our archer's already pretty great. This like upgrades our archer and I think works with fast shot. Yeah, she could make this attack twice. Oh, that's fun. I don't think this makes it in, but I want to put it in and think about it. Gelid Cyclone. Chop, you were right. Oh, this is a really fun pairing. And Wellner, thanks for making me do this. Gelid Cyclone. Reaction. Use this after this card is turned face up. Remove this fighter from the battlefield and then place this fighter in an empty hex that contains an objective token. Then you can give this fighter 1 charge token. Reaction. Use this after this fighter's activation. Push this fighter 1 hex. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay, so... This can do some cheeky wild hunt stuff early. It can be one of my ways to like grab an objective and charge somebody out. And for that, I'll definitely be trying it. But then this reaction afterwards, being able to push after activations is really good. We who are about to face this pairing salute you. Love it. Man. This is going to be the hardest cuts I've ever had to make. And here I was thinking that my familiarity would help with the whittling. Layfrost Conduit. Rimelocked. Ooh, I got to pay attention to that Rimelocked word. Frostgale is Rimelocked. Gelid is Rimelocked. Okay. I think that might end up being a point against Frostgale, making it in. As fun as it would be to upgrade my archer like that. We'll see. So then... Oh, but this would help with the wound one. Yeah, okay. We're getting ahead of ourselves. That's like trim territory. All right. -1 defense to a minimum of 1 from enemy fighters during this fighter's attack actions. While this fighter is holding an objective, this fighter supports each friendly fighter. Oh, wow. This helps boost that +1 damage card from anywhere. While this fighter is holding an objective, this fighter supports each friendly fighter. Oh, I want you in this deck. Polar Connection, Rimelocked. +1 dice and innate support 1 to this fighter's range 1 or range 2 attack actions while this fighter is holding an objective. Okay, I can confidently say, getting cut now, we don't need this one because of while this fighter is holding an objective. And it being limited to range 1, range 2. Yeah, okay. Polar Connection out. We got to draw the line somewhere. Raw Power, Rimelocked. When this fighter makes a range 1 attack action, +1 damage to that attack action if there were no successes in the target's defense roll. Oh, hot. Okay. that could crank the scything shenanigans up even harder. But if no successes, I mean, normally you're trying to outnumber their successes. Not seeing none of them all together, and this is on a 3-turn timer. I don't know. I think that one gets to. This could be explosive. I like the name. I like the art. I like everything about it. But I think it's swingy and unpredictable. Like you can't count on this. All right, we're gonna leave it out. We got enough to cut. You cannot give this to a large fighter or a beast. This fighter cannot be pushed by enemy warbands. I don't. So drive back is going to be when this comes up the most. And when we are playing flex, this is such a good flex tool. Oh, I'm so happy to see this. This is really good in this deck. In like Rimelocked Relics. I think this is going to be an 11th card that ends up getting cut, but I want it to make it in towards our holding objectives. The Arctic Crown, and I kind of want to play Rimelocked Mad Mob now. I want to try that out at some point too. Use this after an activation step if this fighter is holding an objective in enemy territory. Inspire this fighter. No, we don't have room for this. This is hilarious. We don't have room for this. And my leader's inspiring after he's charged. So this being Rimelocked, I mean, this is cool. Like this would be really scary in other decks. Like let's say you were trying to ignore a Mollog to not accidentally inspire him or his team. And he's just like, fine, I'll just go stand over here and inspire. That would be pretty spicy. But here we're going to be charging into a position like this if we're getting into a position like that, and that's going to inspire us anyways. So Snowblind Cloak. You cannot give this to a large fighter. -1 damage to attack actions that target this fighter while this fighter is holding an objective in no one's or enemy territory to a minimum of 1. Yeah, that's cool, but we put a lot of focus on those objectives being in our territory. And do we have room for it? 14? No. But this is one like, oh man, great choices available to us. Like if I hadn't already been through the rest of the upgrades, like that was an earlier one in the list, it would have made it in and it would have ended up in the cut here. But we're on to the trim, and this is gonna be a tough one. I think the objectives will be a little easier, but the rest will be pretty hard. So let's go take a look at one thing real quick, just because it was called out by UChop, and I super appreciate like being able to chat and hang out. Is it called? I thought it was called Icy Grip. Yeah, it was. Okay. Immediately after an opponent's activation step, if your warband holds 2 or more objectives, and 1 or more of those objectives is in no one's and or enemy's territory. Let's add it in. And we'll, I mean, surges were already going to be the harder part of this puzzle to cut. But I'd like to at least be thinking about it, given everything that we've seen. I might work backwards here. I think we're going to start upgrades for sure, so we understand how much we're bringing in the Rimelocked realm, and I think that'll affect all of our trimming going left here. Let's just take a look what's already pressuring Rimelocked upgrades. So we've got, so 1 or more of those fighters each have 1 or more face down Rimelocked upgrades. So this was a friendly or an enemy. And at least 1 of both, or 1 on each side is out of action. So this is pressuring us bringing some Rimelocked stuff for sure. Then that is not Total Conquest is not, but I understand this card a lot more now that I've seen what can happen. Like for example, that upgrade that didn't just make it in, that was doing -1 damage if I'm holding in their territory. Short-term memory just dropped that. Shattered defenses. No Rimelocked pressure on Icy Grip. or Shattered Defenses. Glacial Dominion. Scores immediately after an opponent's activation step if one or more friendly fighters holding an objective has one or more Rimelocked upgrades. I think that this is really good. This is definitely pressuring it. I want this card to make it in. An enemy fighter is taken out of action. I like too that from a design standpoint, this is pressuring me to bring and interact with Rimelocked. An enemy fighter is taken out. No. A friendly fighter's Rimelocked upgrade is turned face up, and that fighter is holding an objective. So we've got 3 objectives that I think are all really good that are pressuring Rimelocked upgrades. So we probably want to bring, man, no fewer than 3. I don't think we grabbed that many. Let's see. We grabbed Layfrost, Gelid Cyclone, Frostgale. That's it. Ugh. So that puts a lot of pressure on drawing into these 3 upgrades. I would feel more comfortable with 5 Rimelocked upgrades. Do I have to go find 2 more? Oh boy, what a long lunch. One or more of those fighters each have 1 or more face down Rimelocked upgrades. There was not a way to give the enemy Rimelocked upgrades in the power deck, was there? No, there was not. Oh, I suppose Frozen Solid. Oh wow, so you'd have to freeze their upgrade and then kill them. The only other way you're doing it is with Frostbite. Yeah. Frostbite might be getting cut. And then we, like, in exchange for a Rimelocked upgrade. Cool Heads cannot be pushed. I think this is going to end up getting cut. Because we can just bring... man, I wish Rimeworm Skin Boots was a Rimelocked one. That would have elevated it for me. Unfortunately, that's going to probably push it more towards getting cut. Brittle Reveal. I don't think I want Brittle Reveal at all, because especially if we're bringing a low count of Rimelocked stuff, we don't want them breaking on us. So let's get rid of Brittle Reveal for sure. First cut. Ooh, that one was easy. So let's go to the upgrades again. And let's just take a look at Rimelocked. What a puzzle. Oh, it's going to show them all, isn't it? Yeah, that's okay, because they're all from Rimelocked Relics. But we're just going to pay attention to what's got the bolded keyword right above it. So Polar Connection, how many total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I don't really want fewer than 4 if I can help it. I don't want the Arctic Crown. That's out. Maybe we do bring raw power. Yeah, I think we at least entertain raw power. I like it the most out of the 3 that we didn't take. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I wish more of these had been Rimelocked. Because that would push, or like that would create more. Like I feel really pulled right now, and that like from a design standpoint, that's interesting. I just wish I kind of had more choice between which ones I take, outside of saying like, okay, out of these 6, I'm probably going to need 4 or 5. I could even see some people feeling that 5 is probably all you need at most, but I could see some people like, no, I've got so much that relies on it, I'll go for 6 of them, right? And then like in that case, you're just bringing them all, and like I don't think this card is very good for like a lot of folks. This would be really good for Soul Raid. I'd love this in a Soul Raid deck. I wonder how they play with these. Actually, they do invade hold fairly okay. I mean, they've only got 3 fighters that can hold. Yeah, all right. I digress. So, if we're going to stick with this, we're bringing Chillbane armor. Do I just have to pull away from I might have to pull away from the Rimelocked scoring. That just might be... That might be the case here. I don't like that. I really want to go in for the scoring. Let's get rid of Total Conquest. And then Glacial Dominion. I still want to keep this. So if I'm going to force myself to keep Glacial Dominion, then I'm just going to all in. We'll go for Steaming Corpses, and we'll go for Defrosted as well. So that means, can Defrosted work with Gelid Cyclone immediately after a friendly is turn face up and that fighter is holding an objective? I think timing wise that works out okay. Depends on your definition of immediately. I think when this flips up, this immediately occurs and immediately satisfies Defrosted as well. I think these two are made for each other. I'll have to double check that, but right now I feel good about that understanding. So we'll keep Frostgale, which is something I didn't expect to keep. We got a cool Archer upgrade there. Let's get rid of Frostbite. That's not going to make the cut. Let's see. Chillbane Armor, 100% making it in. Divine Strength, out. Out. We can't afford a slot for knockback, which means if we can't afford a slot for knockback, we can't afford... Oh, would you go away? Card? Chillbane Armor? Okay, it's stuck here. And a tradition, so a one-time tradition is this could be part of the name. I'm going to type this into chat real quick. Chillbane. Be thinking about a name here. By the way, I have a hard cut at 2. So Rimelocked, you're bringing the longest episode of What the Decks to date. And that's okay. So I'm going to hit refresh to get that out of my face. Cool. That anytime you hit refresh in Underworld's DB, by the way, it breaks your data load, so you gotta reload it. So I'm just gonna do that in case we end up needing it. But yeah, Divine Strength gone. So let's get rid of Kurno's Snare then. Like Kurno's Snare is like a questionable take anyways, because I've got to really like incentivize people on the enemy team to stand towards lethals on my side because I can't control the lethals on their side. So then that knockback's just kind of a cheeky way to help with it, but then you really only have one card helping you with it. So what are you doing? Sometimes I'll like push an enemy with 2 shots of arrows. That's another way to help do it. Or one attack is meant to damage and push them a little bit, and the next attack is to push them further into it. So anyways, there's a lot of engineering that ends up going into that one. And I have fun with that sometimes, but that's maybe a guilty pleasure objective and definitely deserving of the cut there. All right, too much said on it. Let's go on to, so we're forced to keep Frostgale, Gelid, Layfrost Conduit, and Raw Power. And I'm really not sad about that forced position. I don't want to cut Skin Boots if I can help it, but it probably will get cut. 3 cuts. If we get rid of Vicious Darts and Healing Breeze, we get rid of Soul Binding. So we're going to hold on to that thought. Shield Slash is pretty scary. This might... Do I put this in? This is normally an easy cut, but I'm considering like wanting my fighters to survive even more. I don't know. Legane can't hold an objective for me. Yeah, this is cut. And Legane can maybe hold a Rimelocked for me to be like, are you sure you want to kill this fighter? Because then that could go towards Steaming Corpses. All right. Let's do, so we're keeping +1 dice. That's not range restricted. Fast shot. I want to keep that with the Frost Scale thing that we got going on. Hail Charm's absolutely staying. Kurnos Mark is staying. So I'm forced to cut 2 cards from Rhymeworm Skin Boots, Shield Slash, and Vicious Darts. So that makes this easy. You know, it's going to be so we know which ones are on watch, if you will. So let's move on to the other pieces and circle back. We have them marked. So let's look at our surges real quick. So we have killing somebody with a charge. Leader kills somebody. I feel pretty good about, like, sometimes these score together with your like javelin throw. Soul Binding is pressuring both our Gambits and our upgrades right now. We have 4 pieces all supporting this. Defrosted, we talked about wanting to keep. Enemy fighter is taken out of action. Your warband holds 1 or more objectives. I feel like that's going to happen. We talked about wanting to keep this one. Yeah, so Icy Grip is gone because this is hold 2 and they have to be elsewhere. Shattered defenses. That attack action was successful, and the attacker is holding an objective in no one's or enemy territory. We're going to try leaving this at home. But I like this one. I think I might... Oh, if we leave... Okay, so it's between this one and Soul Binding right now. Oh, boy. So Glacial Dominion is good. Warband holds 1 or more. All right, let's hold on to that thought. So we have Soul Binding and Shattered Defenses is what's marked right now. And Shattered Defenses, the only thing going against it right now is the pull towards no one's or enemy territory. And with things like Purifying Rites and Icebound Defenders, these things are kind of keeping us in a home field advantage situation, and I want to lean into those. So I think that's our answer. Shattered Defenses is gone, which means Soul Binding did actually squeeze in and is going to pressure us to keep Vicious Darts. So with Vicious Darts kept, we get rid of Shield Slash, we get rid of Rhymeworm Skin Boots. All right, so those pieces of the puzzle are coming together. Do I think that these are the right decisions? Not 100% sure. We're going to find out. Tune in 2 weeks from now for this field report. This will be a really fun one. So because we leaned into Rimelocks, we get to keep Steaming Corpses, and I feel good about the rest of this. I don't think that we need to go over these. So Gifts of Kurnoth is what's going to go. Pure Safety and Swiftness got even easier by the fact that we brought 2 pieces that can bring charge tokens to our fighters, both in Gelid Cyclone as well as, what is it? This one here, Glacial Advance. Okay, so then we can kind of go through like a must-haves, and that can help weed things down. So like Rays of Dawn, I think, is on the cutting block. It could help. I guess what it could help with is it could help situate Glacial Domain and defrost it at the right times. Dang it, I really wanted to cut it. Okay, so let's assume that we're keeping all 3 spells, but Healing Breeze so Healing Breeze can also heal enemies, by the way. Like, this is fighter agnostic, so you're healing like an adjacent pool of fighters, so you gotta be careful with what you're doing there. Okay, let's choose a friendly fighter with 1 or more face down Rimelocked upgrades that has 1 or more thought counters, and pick one of those. Remove. This is so cool. It might not be necessary. I think that one's going. Each time a thought counter would be placed on a face down. So this allows us to, I'd rather have Sudden Thought helping us than Rays of Dawn. So we're going to get rid of Rays of Dawn, especially since Sudden Thought can help with the Rime Worm Bite pairing, or matchup. Matchup is the right word there. Cool heads. Oh, I was really hoping that we'd be able to keep the skin boots and then not have to keep this. Let's see. Choose a friendly fighter that has one or more face down Rimelocked upgrades and push one of those and pick one of those cards. Push that fighter 1 hex for each thought counter. So we have a couple different ways that we're pushing already. We've got Fleet of Foot as a move out of sequence. We've got Hunt in Concert. We've got Pounce. So we're like 3 positional movements deep. Retrieve Javelin's going to help quite a bit with just making sure that we have reach when we're charging to objectives. Striking Concert, I think, is really good, especially with this card. So if we kind of just go by rules of must-haves here, like, I'm making excuses to put this in because I can see applications, but it doesn't feel like a must-have. So that's probably gone. Let's mark it. This I want, but isn't a must-have, and I put it above Cool Heads because if I get pushed off, Fractured Steps can bring us back in. So let's get rid of Cool Heads. We've already said Fractured Steps is more ideal. Frozen Solid can help us with Steaming Corpse Pile, and can also be an interesting little control piece, but it's not a must-have. So it's marked. I'd value it similarly to Fractured Steps, but Fractured Steps actually does more for our game plan. So Frozen Solid is marked. Glacial Advance, that's a must-have. That helps our Warband cheat our Inspire. That must be holding an objective. Okay, so you can never use this on Logain, but still, I feel that's a must. Each time a thought counter would be placed on a face down upgrade. Oh yeah, this is the domain we just chose to keep. Ooh, I don't want to get rid of this. This is not a must-have. I don't think. Maybe it is. This isn't a must-have, that's for sure. Winterbone Might, that's gone. I want to say Healing Breeze isn't, but I don't want to put us in a position where, well, so we're either drawing Vicious Darts. I mean, three pieces is my rule. Is you never want less than 3 pieces, but a 4th piece definitely helps. I think we can actually probably sacrifice Healing Breeze for a little less like spell opportunity into Soul Binding, which is putting a lot of pressure on us right now. Like maybe, so I think this is the right answer. And then maybe Soul Binding gets tuned out and replaced for something else after this test drive, and Vicious Darts gets replaced with the skin thing. For now, we'll give this a go. We do have 3 pieces supporting Soul Binding, but often if a card is putting a lot of pressure on you, like in this case, Soul Binding putting pressure on these, then you got to think about if that pressure is worthwhile, right? Like the reason I think it's worthwhile already is I'd bring Binding Wind in most of these decks. I'd bring Might of Kurnoth in most of these decks. So I'm already 2 towards it. So what's the pressure of an additional card or 2? So I don't hate it. And then I think that means I have to pick between Frozen Solid or Fractured Step. And the only thing, so Frozen Solid is controlling them a little bit on a dice roll, whereas this could potentially save our game plan. And but Frozen Solid can also be Steaming Corpses. So you kind of have to think here, like there's no right answer. These both are good in this slot. So is there already so much push tech in here that you don't really need to justify Fractured Steps? And that's probably the case. Fleet of Foot, Hunt in Concert, Pounce, Glacial Advance, and Gelid Cyclone are all helping us there. We've got 5 positional pieces. And yes, positional pieces are great with a game plan like this. but let's make room. Let's cut one to make a little room. So this is easily the hardest trim I've had to make on What the Decks yet. And I'm really excited to try this deck out. Get to play an old favorite, get to play a really interesting new flex puzzle box. Yeah, cool. All right, so there we are. Anybody have any name ideas for this deck? We have to come up with something. It's the final task, is a good name. So we had Chillblain Armor hanging out before as kind of a glitch. Man, is this the Chillblain Hunt? I'm not opposed. It's always fun to like pair in recognizable elements of the names. Sometimes I like to go for some cheeky off puns that like you have to think about to kind of pull you into like what is that pairing. As an example, I'm tinkering with a Fearsome Fortress build for the new fellas. I've been calling them the Bolty Bros, the Brethren of the Bolt. And so because they're all lightning based, right? And they're going to be, I want them to be like flexibly holding. I'm calling it Hollowed Grounds, and I am such a fan of that name in that pairing. So that's kind of an example of where like you can go out on a pun and still, when people think about it, they're like, what deck? And then you say, oh, it's a Fearsome Fortress pairing for Brethren of the Bolt. Then it like clicks and it's like Hallowed Grounds. So spoilers, by the way. I hope that deck's a lot of fun. I think it's probably not the best pairing with them, but it'll be fun. And I'm gonna miss Fearsome Fortress when it rotates out in 6 months. So I'll definitely be trying that quite a bit. Yeah, let's go with Chillblain, the Chillblain Hunt. Let's do it. So save the Chillblain Hunt, and I mean that's probably one of the coolest upgrades in here for them, anyways. Like Gelid Cyclone is up there. Like that would be my pick for coolest card in this pairing, is because it can help cheat out that charge, and it has so much else going for it. But Chillblain really ups the reroll that's built into Shiok and Althane. The Chillblain Hunt. There we go. All right. Well, let's close this episode out. Thank you all for tuning in, for watching after the fact as well. Next week will be a week B in the new cadence. So that'll be an experimental week. I'm actually not 100% sure what I'm going to fill that slot with yet. But that allows you and me both to have 2 weeks instead of 1 week to get you a field report on this deck to test it out. Very curious as to how it works for you. If you tried it out, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to call that out next week, that other people are giving these builds a try, and here's their experiences as well. But in the queue for our next build, so our next week A, 2 weeks from now, there's been requests for Starblood Stalkers, Crimson Court, and then a pairing in full with Wormspat and Force of Frost. So those are in queue. I will probably opt initially to do 1 or 2 more episodes of new releases before I circle back to these individuals. So we've had 7 warbands land recently, and I've only gotten a chance to tackle 1 of them here on the show. So I think we'll do at least 2 more episodes of the new fellas. But then this queue will be something I start digging into. And in the meantime, until you see me next, I'll be giving this deck a test drive at my local meetup, and we'll report back, as I said, in 2 weeks with a field report. You can see this deck, build, and many more at the Battle Mallets Nemesis Library. You can best reach me in the comments below or on the Mortal Realms Discord. You can check out all the Mortal Realms has to offer, including a link to that Discord I mentioned at themortalrealms.com. There's a link already in the description below. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next week. I've been Skylar, and this has been What the Decks.